if you're a parent and you don't have interest in your children's, not only their success, but how they frankly experience failure, I honestly don't think you're much of a parent. You know, if things go smoothly for kids all the time and the grass is always green and the red carpet is rolled out, that's one thing. But what about when things don't? Well, that's terrible. Not necessarily. That's called learning. Okay, falling flat on your face planting is also getting back up. Again, how do we develop the successful mindset, which means dealing with failure too in our kids? I know someone who has a lot of experience, and this is our good friend Dr. John Braccio. drjohnb.com, that's the place to go for all of the segments here. The podcasts are there at Regional Psychological Services of East Lansing. Good morning.
Well, good morning to you, Dave, and I think this is really an important topic. We're really talking about developing a successful mindset in our children. I think the proverb, success breeds success, is a good adage to live by when trying to help our children. Because a successful person in life is the result of a series of good choices over the years that's resulted in mastery of the skill sets necessary to succeed, both psychologically and materially. And these skill sets are developed by endless repetition, doing things over and over again. Mm-hmm. All they have to do is look at a game like golf or high-level math, and we can see that this is really true. And we also have to know that failures are part of life. I mean, that is part of the cycle. The main thing is, if as parents, we want to make sure that we're letting children know they can succeed and help them. You know, in terms of mastery begins step one, step two. And when a person fails, when children fail, and they see that as their kind of role in life, it develops low self-esteem and not having development of good skills. I think, as Edison said, you know, he found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. It didn't bother him. He simply was, well, it's true. I mean, he was looking for the solution, and those who did not discourage him, I'm sure he wasn't very happy about it, but on the other hand, it taught him that those are ways not to do it, and he went on until he finally succeeded. So I think as parents, we want to be encouraging our children, trying to make them successful, and kind of, if we see them doing things that are impossible, let them know that too, but also encourage them one step at a time to have mastery of activities and then go from one to another. Because when we see successful people and people with high-level skill sets, we don't really realize that it took a lot of effort to get to that point. You don't just all of a sudden sit down and do trigonometry. You don't just all of a sudden start making 20, 30-foot putts as a game. So it's part of life, and as parents, we want to be the guiding figure in a positive way, not a negative way, not destructive, but helping and guiding. And you're going to find that children, by and large, that are very successful in life, often they have had support, hopefully from parents, but otherwise from teachers and others, or all persons along the way. But it's really critical support and to move forward and develop those skill sets.
Well, and the idea, too, that you don't focus all on the failure, but on how to take that and turn it into something. I mean, if your kids are, remember my kids on, you know, the swinging bars where you have to reach over hand, and my son would get halfway and he goes, I can't do it. I said, you got to swing your lower body a little bit. And he goes, I'll fall off. I said, you already fall off. Try it again. Try it this way. See if that works. See if it gets you a little further. And it did. I mean, I've been looking at this week. Okay, Doc, the fifth quarter show that we've done, we did it started 30 years ago. I got that going. 30 years ago this month at Channel 6. It's amazing. And people say, oh, what a great success. It's great branding. It's become something. I'm not part of it anymore, but I'm proud of it like a parent. But what people don't know is that in another market, before I came to Lansing, we did it, and it did not work well. And I learned from that, okay? So it's funny. Success is bred, as you say, like trigonometry, not by just instantly knowing it, but by the fundamental building blocks. And some of those are just abject face plants and crashes. They are.
That's true. There's nothing wrong with that. Failure is really, part of success. I mean, it's the road. In fact, actually, I do have another Thomas Edison quote here, that great success is built on failure, frustration, and even catastrophe. So, we don't look at someone like, let's take Miguel Cabrera, who just hit his 500th home run. There was a time where he didn't even know what he was doing. I mean, he may have started better than most at his age, and that's probably true, but you develop a skill set, and you develop by practice over and over and over again, and that is really what we really need to know with our children, because so many persons as adults, when I talk to them, they will say they really didn't have much encouragement, or they were never told to strive high. They were saying, well, if you don't want to do that, don't do that. I'm not saying we force kids to do things and have them live the life maybe we wanted, or what we think they ought to do necessarily, but we want to encourage people. Excuse me. If they have particular interests and tendencies, that we do encourage them to develop those skills, and we even try to bring forward things they might not be aware of and try to show them different things so they can develop skills. I think we all know persons that were not successful in math or reading or whatever it might be, but they were encouraged and helped to the point that they became very good at it and even went into it as careers. We find those things all the time, and all you have to do is you could go anywhere, any grocery store, any pharmacy, anywhere, and just say, hey, what have you learned in life, and what helped you succeed? Who were the persons that succeeded in terms of helping you? And when we do that, we often find it was the parent. Sometimes it may be a grandparent, it could be a teacher, it could be a friend, a family member, but it's generally the role of the parent to do that. And successful persons will tell you they did have parents that helped unleash their success in life. And I think it's important that we not minimize what we can do, because sometimes parents, or maybe too often, will say, oh, well, I kind of want them to find what they're going to do. And I understand that, and I recognize that. However, a lot of times people have no idea what they really like, and they go into things that really aren't going to be helpful. So that's where we go in and we help children. We also, I think, need to help children and then adults also to understand the difference between an avocation and a vocation. A vocation pays the freight, if you will, and an avocation is what you may really just enjoy doing. Hopefully you can get an avocation that can turn into a vocation, but the main thing is to find a way that's going to support a lifestyle, support a family, and support the things that you really are going to find important as you grow and live your life.
I like what you said earlier about parents not being too, giving the gentle push here and the guidance and encouraging rather than being overbearing or trying to live vicariously through their children. I mean, in a sense, we all live vicariously through our children, our offspring, and that's the way the human species work. But trying to live their life for them is a different thing. But why do so many just fail to encourage? You encounter this all the time. You've run into this many times. Did they get too busy? It can't be that they don't care. Are they just afraid of being considered overbearing? Because that's not what you're talking about here today.
No, I think all of those happen. I think some parents are so busy leading their own lives that they don't spend enough time helping direct in a positive way the future of their children. There are others that have bought into the idea, well, I ought not to be too involved. I ought not to be the guiding hand. I ought to back off here. Because many persons in our society take that posture that, well, let's not push people into things that they might not want to do. We don't want to have them years later saying, I never wanted to do that. My parent pushed me. Now, that's a little different than what we're talking about. We're not talking about pushing somebody. We're talking about encouraging people, but to do things that they have natural tendencies to do or help them develop in areas. So I think there's a difference, or maybe a fine line, but I have found that parents that have helped their children, given them the tools, tried to have them in schools that really can help them, tried to help them find friends, by encouraging, even when they're younger, taking them and their friends that they really feel are good for them to movies, over to the home for ice cream. The parent's role is very important in determining how the person is going to succeed. And I might add, I do still believe that being around persons that are successful and have goals to be successful, that's really going to help push your child to be successful also.
It's the old quote, success breeds success. Success breeds success. It's true.
There is no success, and so it seems so simple, and in some ways it is. However, so many parents just don't really see it, or they do live vicariously with their children, or they push them to do the same thing they're doing, and or what they think they didn't do in life, and they want to push the child to do that. And often the end result is failure, and failure also in the sense the person may appear successful in life, but they may have gone into a career that the parents wanted them to go into, and they did it for the parents, or they felt they had to do it or ought to do it. And in the end result, it is lack of success. And we see them all the time. I've worked with countless people that are successful to the world, but felt they were pushed into careers in areas that they really don't like. So that is not a good way to live a life. You want to develop skill sets in areas that you enjoy, areas that can propel you in all areas that you might want, financially, psychologically, socially, call it what you will. That's really what you want. You want a career, and you want to be happy and satisfied, and we best do that by, one, helping our children and having parents help and propel us. That certainly happened in my case, and I believe happened in your case also, Dave.
My dad, everything my dad told me was always rinse and repeat the same thing. I'm not expecting any particular thing out of you, but I'm expecting your best effort. And whether it's sports, whether it's class, whether it's what you're choosing to do for a living, I'm expecting your best effort. And if you give that, I'm always going to be proud of what you achieved. No, it was my dad. And I thought a lot of that. The idea of success, failure can build it. The right encouragement can send our children to heights that maybe only they could have dreamed of, but they can also achieve. Regional Psychological Services in East Lansing, and the good doctor, Dr. John Braccio, our guest. drjohnb.com for the podcast. Good advice today, as always, and good to talk to you. Take care. Stay safe, Doc, okay?
Will, for sure. Always a pleasure, Dave. Talk to you later.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're back. 1320 WILS.